Welcome to the next installment of our Think Big series brought to you by PSG. My name is Mikhail Mutada and I'm an assistant fund manager at PSG Asset Management. PSG is a leading financial services group with an extensive footprint in South Africa. We've been in operation since 1998 and pride ourselves on providing a bigger picture approach to our clients' financial needs, ranging from asset and wealth management to short-term insurance. We offer clients access to a wide range of solutions to meet these needs. The Think Big series is a collection of dialogues with leading speakers hosted by award-winning financial journalist Bruce Whitfield. We aim to bring our audience independent insights that help them formulate their own opinions on some of our country's most pressing issues. Uncertainty and challenges continue to abound, but armed with knowledge, we are better equipped to chart the way forward. Today's episode is no different, with the topic we are exploring being the future of banking. And who better to discuss the topic than Gerrie Fourie, the CEO of the largest disruptor and innovator that the South African banking industry has seen, Capitec. Gerrie was amongst the founding contingent of Capitec, having joined in 2000. And prior to becoming CEO, Gerrie was the head of operations. So it's fair to say his operational and strategic knowledge have been invaluable assets to Capitec's successful growth. To provide you with a sense of what Capitec has achieved, today, Capitec boasts a market capitalization of just shy of 200 billion rand, making it the third largest bank in South Africa on this metric. That is despite its peers having close to a 100-year head start. Before handing over to Bruce, who needs no introduction, a reminder that our social media campaign is #ThinkBigPSG. Also note that this series is free, shareable, and open to anyone interested, whether you're a PSG client or not. Bruce Whitfield, over to you.
Mikhail, thanks very much indeed. Gerrie Fourie, lovely to have you with us today. It's a lovely South African story, the startup of Capitec. It was the thing we never knew that we needed. South Africa had four big banks and Investec was growing as well. There were a whole smattering of little specialist banks, one for dentists, one for second-hand car salesmen. There were lots of little banks. And suddenly there was this little startup called Capitec, which in the early days was funded, of course, by PSG. And it was going to serve a market that was rendered by the rest of the banking sector as unbankable. I mean, it was quite a revolutionary thought at the time, wasn't it?
Yes, Bruce, I think if we look back, we even challenge ourselves today with Mercantile to say when we took on the big four, the big five, maybe we were a little bit crazy, but those days you looked at the opportunity, you understood the market, and you really believed that you could do something differently. And I think we've done that to look at banking completely different. And I think the approach we took was to look at it from a retail perspective. We always seen ourselves more as retailers than bankers. Because one of the first things we did was to open the branches from 8 to 5. Why is the bank only opening from 8 to 3:30? I think the other big misconception is that you've just said is when we wrote our business plan, it was always to bank 96, 97% of all South Africans. We didn't believe in the private banking model, so we left that out. But we wanted to build a bank for all South Africans, and that's still what we're doing today. And yeah, I think where it came, or the perception came, that we're starting with the unbanked is we had to develop strategies to say, how do we actually tackle the four traditional banks? And the easy way out was to start in the rural areas, because there you were undercover, you were far away, nobody saw you. I remember the first time we went into Transkei, there was only Meat Bank, which was a trust bank, which was 50% owned by Absa and 50% by the black-owned trust. So it was an ideal opportunity to start Capitec there. Nobody knew about it, and we were hiding away. And then slowly but surely we went into the urban areas. And yeah, if you look at our portfolio today, basically is our client base is 95% of South Africans.
So when you look at the strategy back then, I mean, this was always the plan, to have retail branches, to utilize whatever technologies would come in the future, and to bank people on the basis of simplicity and at low cost, because the rest of the banking sector was anything but.
Yeah, I think if I look at the business model, and it was actually incredible at that stage. We were acquiring micro lenders, because that was one way of starting a bank. You either have a big amount of money, or you start as a micro lending, and from the cash that you generate there, we actually built the bank. But we actually, the first 6 months, maybe first 9 months, we actually just write down our business plan. What are we going to do? Are we going to do it? And I think, we very quickly said there should be 4 fundamentals: affordability, accessibility, simplicity, and service. And then very strongly is when we said we don't want to differentiate. We don't want to say you get a blue card, you get a pink card, you get a purple card. We don't want different fee structures. We want to treat all clients exactly the same. And it's that whole philosophy of simplicity and transparency, because we believe we hated the whole aspects thing. Normally when you get advertising, there was always from this price, but then there's the asterisk. Only 2 people qualify. So we hated asterisks. So we wanted that simplicity and transparency to make certain that our clients fully understand what they're getting. That we can say, this is what you're getting, this is what you're not getting. And I think that was the whole philosophy that we built it. And, even today, every meeting, we spend just the leadership a day with the top 150 leaders of the bank here in April. And all we've spoken about is affordability, accessibility, simplicity, and service. How do we make certain that that's relevant, and how does it actually has changed, and how do we actually adopt it? So those fundamentals are still core of our business.
When you were building it, was there a model that you looked at anywhere in the world and said, let's do it a bit like that? Or was this a South African hybrid? Was it the Rooibos or the Pinotage of global banking?
No, I think, we always said, don't look at what your competitors do or what somebody else, you can maybe learn from it. But if you start a business or you run a business, look at what your client wants. That's the first thing. Really understand your clients. We always joked and said 4 of us is coming out of liquor, and why it helped us was we understood the black market. We understand how Mr. are working. How do you distribute liquor into Soweto? What's the needs of the market? How important the building of a brand is. So it was all those philosophies that we actually took, and we spent hours and hours in saying, what is the need of the client? And eventually what we did is, after we've identified that, then we said, okay, what are the competitors doing, and seeing if our gap is big enough. Because we strongly believe, even today, I say when the guys come with a proposal, how do we differentiate 20-30% from the market? Because it just helps you to really show that you are different. And that was the approach. So it was more, it's a very strong client-centric approach rather than to copy and paste from somewhere.
You launch into chaos. Anybody who remembers the early 2000s remembers the collapse of Sambo, rapidly followed by the collapse of BOE, rapidly followed by a run on deposits at Nedbank. And it was only when the Reserve Bank stepped in and said, okay, look, we'll guarantee deposits. Old Mutual, you come and take over Nedbank. And that's played out, of course, over time now. And just recently, we've seen an almost wholesale selling off by Old Mutual their Nedbank shares. This is 20 years later. It was a chaotic environment. It was an environment where Trevor Manuel was finance minister, and where for a moment it looked like it would be make or break for Capitec. The vast majority of your smaller rivals evaporated almost overnight, yet you survived. What was the reason for your survival back then?
Yeah, I think it's just, maybe just you forgot the other one. It was 9/11. I still remember sitting in the...
That's 20 years ago, by the way. I mean, that gives us some context, because 9/11 was just the other day. 20 years ago was a long time ago, but that's when you were founded as well, yes.
But it was interesting. Yeah, I think, we just stuck to our fundamentals, stuck to what we know we want to build, because at that stage, we were so focused on what systems are we going to use, what is our distribution model going to look like, what is our product ranges going to look like, and then also in the micro lending industry is to look at, say, how do you disrupt that? because just to give you an indication, at that stage, the interest rates were 30% per month or 360% per year. And I still remember Rihanna and myself was in the Eastern Cape traveling it. And in that period where you would think you won't make a serious decision, we actually decided to cut the interest rates with 50%. So we dropped from 30% to 15%. Because we believe the market would be price sensitive and we can grow. And I think it's a bit of our DNA, doing what is right for the client. I still remember the first month we didn't make a profit. It was the first time we didn't make a profit. Second one as well, and then suddenly it kicked, and it really kicked. So yeah, I think all crises that we've handled was always about, let's call it focus. What are the real issues at hand, and then allocating the right resources to those particular issues and manage it from there. Luckily, at that stage, we were listed, but we were actually unbundling out of PSG Bank, the old business bank. They had 2 banking licenses, so we thought it's quite easy. We go to the Reserve Bank and we ask them for a business license. We buy it and we're fine. And then they said, sorry, we have to get one. And we were lucky they had 2, and the only way they could get rid of the 2 is to unbundle and then to list us. And I think we listed that day at just over 2 Rand and dropped to about 76 cents. So that was fun, but we didn't need capital. It was just a matter of getting hold of the license. That was the most important, but it was fun and games.
I mean, that 76 cents sits in my brain, and again, I don't know if we're feeding off each other here, but 76 cents a share you could have bought Capitec at, and today that share price looks like it's going to go to 2,000. I mean, it's been a stratospheric ride. Where's been the biggest crisis? Where's been the biggest problem? I remember asking Gerrie Fourie this question, and they have a far longer history, of course, history twice as long with the First Rand Group. And I kind of thought he would say 1987 and the debt standstill and sanctions and PW Botha. But actually, that was the best time, because it was in the chaos that people were capitulating and giving up, and they were seizing opportunity, and they bought Southern Life and got the FNB license, and that was brilliant for them. It was actually 2008 in the global financial crisis where he had a conversation with Laurie Dippenaar and said, will we open on Monday? And Laurie said, I don't know. As faith was collapsing around them. I mean, did you ever face that sort of uncertainty as to whether or not, through no fault of your own, you might not open on Monday?
Yeah, I think the Sambo BAE days was one of those where you really were worried about what is happening and how are we going to survive with the banking crisis. Luckily, we weren't a bank at that particular stage. I think the 2008 financial crisis was also quite a big one, because we were just starting to extend our lending terms, and you needed funding, and suddenly there was no funding. So we had to very quickly adapt our book and go shorter. Luckily, South Africa got in 2010 the World Cup soccer, and there was a massive investment in South Africa. So that helped us to overcome it, because there was a lot of employment being created. And then there was the Viceroy saga. If I quickly, because that was more attack on our integrity, our values. What are we really doing? So it was not so much on the outside, but it's more on what do we believe in and what we're doing. So I would probably say those 3 were big crises. But I think the one thing that stands me out in every single crisis is how the Capitec team actually gets together and actually comes out stronger with more focus and more determination to win. Even if I look at the COVID crisis, how quickly we adapted and how quickly we changed our whole strategy and how we forceful implement these things. In last year, we launched 7-8 new products in a COVID year. So I think that's the DNA of the Capitec family is if there's a crisis, we stand together, we fight together, and we overcome it.
Back to Viceroy, if we can, very briefly. I mean, it was unprecedented at the time. I hate the word because it's been overused, but it was truly so, that you got the Reserve Bank to actually stand by you and to talk to the integrity of the business model, to the integrity of the financials, and to really kibosh. And they've come back a couple of times and have tried to undermine the fabric of Capitec. They've yet to gain any real momentum on that particular front. And I doubt very much that they've gone away permanently either. They seem to be waiting for any excuse to be proven right in the long term.
Yeah, I must say, there was twice that the Reserve Bank came to our rescue, if you want to call it, or supporting us. The Viceroy saga was one, where we had to very quickly react and really came out and say what we believe in. And then you always are scared of that run on your deposits. And then they came out and said they don't believe the report. Yeah, we're very thankful for them. I think it was in 2013 or 14, I can't remember now exactly, when Moody's downgraded ourselves with 2 notches and none of the other banks. And then there was also rumblings in the market. And Kasana, that was working for us now, was then our governor, and we phoned him up and said, this is the story, are you going to help us? And they helped us. So I think that's the one thing. The Reserve Bank has always been very strong in South Africa. I think they play a very important role. And when they have supported us, we're very grateful of it.
How complicated is simplicity? One goes past a Capitec branch, went to a Capitec branch, and simplicity is everywhere. It is the mantra. In the same way as Steve Jobs designed the use of this device to be simple, its inner workings are fiendishly complicated. The minerals that are required to make it have to be dug up in holes all over the African continent. Simplicity is like the hardest thing in the world to achieve, surely.
Yeah, it's extremely hard because we always say simplicity in front, complexity at the back. And that's basically what happens. Your IT systems needs to handle the complexity. I think the easiest way, the way I describe simplicity in our branches or for our people is if you develop a screen and we've got 8,000 consultants looking at it, and what is important is we've got side-by-side consulting. So our clients see exactly what our consultants are seeing. So they're also looking at the screen. It's not like typically where there's a screen between you and the client. The client sees what you're entering and what is happening. And I always said simplicity is if you can get 8,000 consultants that can read and understand that screen, all of them 100%. Because then there's no confusion, there's nobody that's got this interpretation, that one, that interpretation. And you can go and see when there's something that's been complex, that's been presented on a PowerPoint, and you do it to top 10 people, whoever that is, and you walk out of that meeting and you ask person A, person B, person C, what is your understanding of what happens? And if you start getting 10 different answers, you haven't hit simplicity. Simplicity is in very simple terms. Put something in, there's 10 people, 30 people, 6,000 people, they must understand it exactly the same. That's simplicity.
What does Warren Buffett say about investing? Invest in a company that an idiot could run, because you can bet your bottom dollar that one day an idiot will run it. You've got to have systems that can be managed by absolutely anybody and be understood critically by the customer. And we've got a massive, education gap in South Africa where people simply are not sufficiently empowered when it comes to how they run their money.
Yeah, I think, just to add to you, simplicity is very important to from a product and a client engagement side. The other very important is we've got an obsession to measure every single thing in the bank, because when you measure things, you understand things. So, for example, if a client comes in and he takes a ticket, from that moment, we measure everything. We measure from the moment you sit till the moment you've been helped. Every screen we measure. So if you spend on this screen, you spend 4 minutes, but the standard is 2 minutes. If it happens 3 or 4 times, we will ask why. All our branches, 7:30 in the morning, gets the stats of what happened in their branch every single morning. So they've got a startup meeting from 7:45 till 8 to make certain that they understand and they can answer that simple question: did I have a good day? Did I have a bad day? And if I had a bad day, how do I correct it? But the real crux lies in coming back to, I think, where we are in South Africa is we're trying to make too many rules and too many regulations, and we don't let people understand and buy in. And the moment you start doing that, you lose the respect. People are not respecting all the rules. So in our side, we're also trying to say, try and make as less rules as possible and make certain that people understand the why. Because if people understand the why, they will go and deliver. But if they don't understand the why, they will do whatever they want to do. And rules and regulations is not going to help it. I think a very good example of that is in the army. I was in the army, and I was also there was many rules and many regulations. And what your whole mindset was, how do you break these rules and how do you get past it? So you spend your time on the wrong things. So there's a fine balance between that, values, culture, and rules.
Critically, it's not then only in the customer experience that simplicity is key. It is in the management of the organization that simplicity runs, that thread, golden thread, goes right through the organization.
Yeah, I think you are 100% right, because it doesn't. You're not going to get simplicity right to your clients if you don't try and run your business as simplistic as possible. And I think that's one of our biggest challenges. And that's why we spend quite a lot of time. And the big question we've got is, how do you make certain that your company stays a small culture company? And we started about 2-3 years ago, where we said the only way you're going to do that is that every single person operates as a CEO. So every single person needs to operate as a CEO. I don't want to be the CEO. And where it came from is basically that if you look at an entrepreneur, a person that owns his own business, he doesn't ask about what hours do I work, what rules are there, what policies are there. He goes out there to run his business to the best of his ability. He understands his clients, he drives his business, he tries and maximize it. And that's where our philosophy came in and say, but your client, or the C is actually for client, your E is for energy, and your O is for ownership. And that's actually the CEO. And we're trying that every single person in the company takes care of that and takes ownership of it.
How, though, do you manage that? Because that potentially, a lot of people listening to this will say, hold on a second, everybody thinks they're the chief. Whoa, 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 whoa. There's a problem here. But it's more simplistic, again, than that, though, I think, in terms of giving people the sense of empowerment, true empowerment, within their decision-making and the job. And they're making calls, but the computer is making most of the calls anyway. The system.
Now, computers make most of the, let's call it, the calls, credit decision. But that energy and ownership of engaging with a client at branch level, that is where, there's a balance between what a machine does and what the human being does. People ask me a lot about branches, what's going to happen with branches. I always say, if I look at a computer can analyze a hell of a lot of data, machine learning, AI, etc., etc. But a computer will never be able to connect, engage, formalize a strategy. But what you can do is, if you put this together, you can then maximize, because the computer does what he does well, and the client and the consultant do what he does well. Now, coming back to the CEO, what we really spend time with is what do we expect from a consultant, from a branch manager to be a CEO? And if you look at that, a consultant, the client comes first. We expect our consultants to stand up, greet the client, to show that energy, to take ownership of a problem, to make certain that the client is satisfied when he walks away. It's those type of things that you do to make certain that philosophy goes right through. The other one is that we drive quite a lot, and I talk a lot about, is make a decision. It's scary, and we still got plenty of work to be done on it, because the easy thing for a person is to say, I'll take it to a committee, and the committee will make a decision. We're forcing and trying and encouraging people to make a decision. And I'm always saying, if you make a decision and it's a wrong decision, just give me 2 or 3 reasons why you've made it, because then I'm happy. I can understand that you thought through it. And then if it's wrong, correct it immediately and learn from it, so that your next decision making is at a much higher level.
That's a very courageous approach to take, and a lot of people don't have the capacity to do that. They're frightened that people are going to make mistakes, and then they're going to spend time doing repair jobs. But you're almost, I hate the term again, but failing forward, if you like. If things do go wrong, you learn from it, you implement those learnings across the organization.
Yeah, 100%. Because you don't learn much out of committees. You learn when you're in the market, you understand the market, you come back, you say, let's do X, Y, Z. You check if it's working. If it's not working, you adjust. Then your mind is creative, and that whole innovative spirit comes in. I think that's what we created in Capitec, is that innovative. It's interesting. We started, I think it was late 2010. We said we want to be the best bank in the world, and then we asked, but what does it mean? And then we went to go and say, but if you look at what is best organizations, firstly they look at client, so they're obsessed with client. Secondly, they are very innovative. But not innovative on the Steve Jobs side that brings in a completely new phone, but it's that small enhancements in processes. And if you make 4, 5, 6 enhancements, then suddenly it's a massive wow experience. So it's that innovation that we're talking about. Then the third one is continuously challenge yourself to improve yourself. That simple question that I ask myself when I'm challenging everyone else in our organization to ask is, did you add value today, yes or no? Because you can answer it. I can't answer it. Have you operated at your best? And then the fourth one is that absolute passion for your people, because everything happens with people. So it's interesting, those four, how that all fits together to get to that answer.
How do you incentivize the best possible behavior? How do you incentivize the best result from teams of 8,000 people? It's a lot of people.
Yeah, we have got in our branches a team award. So it's not an individual reward. So what happens is if the team succeeds, then they get certain benefits, but it's capped to 10% of their salaries, because we don't want to imbalance. But it's quite interesting if you get that whole team thing going, because suddenly you're starting to see that consultant A that's contributing takes on consultant B that's not. Because it's a team award, because we as a team needs to contribute. And I think then the biggest one is always recognition. We always neglect recognition by just that pat on the back. And then thirdly is to get promoted, to get higher, to go higher up. And as we're sitting here, we've got now 5 operational managers, and 3 from them has come all the way from consultant level. So they've been promoted all the way up. So it's a lovely story to actually tell, how people have been promoted and got recognition through that. So it's not always about the money, but it's that recognition, team award, and promotion that I believe gives you that balance.
How are you dealing with the future? South Africans are terrified of the future. People are worried about growth. They're worried about jobs, and understandably so. I mean, there's some very real and fundamental problems in South Africa that have to be dealt with head on. And we've just had so many distractions, and having to, whether or not we jail a former president becomes the most contentious issue of all time, rather than the fact that nearly 45% of people in the country can't find a job even if they want to. It's that sort of fear of the future. Those are the real issues. Those are the meat and potatoes. I remember once having a discussion with Koos Becker, where he was investing billions into India. I said, but hold on a second. You're a South African running a South African company that happens to have a great investment in China. Why are you not plowing that money back into South Africa? Do you not see that as your duty? And he said, well, once you improve the maths and science, and I can see that I'm going to get a return on my investment, which is what I'm doing in India, because I'm hiring and training bright young people who have been well educated, then I'm in and I will do it. I'm paraphrasing the conversation, but he was looking at the environment and saying, how could I possibly justify to my shareholders pouring capital into an environment which is, from an education perspective, quite dysfunctional? And I wonder if that holds you back at all with Capitec.
Yeah, I think if you ask a couple of questions in that.
Sorry.
Maybe the first thing is, I'm a strong believer, if you're positive, you look for opportunities and you find opportunities. If you're negative, you don't find any opportunities, you just find problems. So we encourage people to be extremely positive and look at it. And, you know, if I look at, I said it once at a conference where I look at South Africa, and I used the example of Switzerland. I said, you can go to Switzerland, everything works, but there's no opportunities. Or you go to South Africa, nothing works, but there's plenty of opportunities. So it's your mindset that you need to look at. I think we've got a massive challenge in South Africa if we look at the education side. You know, if you just simply look at, as we're sitting now, we're looking for close to 500 people that we want to employ, and it's all people in business science, AI, data engineers, computer analysts, etc., etc. We're actually launching a big campaign now where we're going to really promote, and so we're looking for people. So it's quite scary, you know. In this period, we're still looking to employ and grow and go further. But yeah, I think we've got a big challenge in South Africa, because if you look at South Africa, I haven't got the stats now, but a very small proportion of South Africans, when they matriculated, has got math. And I think it's 4 or 5%. If you look at the number of people that really goes to universities and study CA, business science, engineering, it's a very small proportion. So we need to restructure the whole education side to get it right. I still don't understand. If I look at Paul that's just below me, it's just operating from 8 till 1 in the afternoon. The school is standing empty. Why is it not being operated like a business from 8 till 8? And we use that full facilities. And if you look at digital now, you can basically do anything on digital. You're not classroom dependent. But yeah, I think we need to look at it a lot differently in South Africa. I think what we are doing is creating a lot of academies in the bank, where we're training people from within. But it's you know, that's a 4, 5, 6 year process. So there's a hard work that needs to be done. And I really believe the one thing we need to get right in South Africa is the whole education system. It's completely flawed. It doesn't make sense. If you go to Mthatha, you know, there's over 200 schools just in Mthatha vicinity. You need to concentrate that and have 4 or 5 very good schools there that operates at very long hours and produce the right caliber of people. So there's big challenges there. But I think if I look at where we are, we believe there's massive opportunities in South Africa. We, on the retail banking side, on average, we've got about a 10% market share. So we need to get to a 20-25% market share. Yeah, if you look at our deposit base, we're 8%. Insurance, we're about 8%. Credit, we 6%. So we still, client base, we big. There we're about 30%. So there's plenty of opportunities to actually go for that. And then we're very excited about Mercantile, because business banking, you know, we believe there's a big opportunity in the informal and SME market. Because if we want to unlock the potential in South Africa, that's the market to focus on.
I mean, it was at a PSG conference, I think 3, maybe 4 years ago, and Pete Mouton was opening, the CEO of PSG, of course, was opening the conference, and he said, negative people never build anything. And it was just this most wonderful, simple synopsis of what Yanni used to say. You know, and it's that it's a philosophy that is so absolutely pivotal. You can't find opportunity when you blink it. And when you're simply looking down or looking ahead rather than looking from side to side, you lose out on so many huge opportunities. Lots of questions coming through, and those questions are very different, and I'm just going to throw them at you in no particular order. Could QR codes become more mainstream feature of South Africa's payments industry? Would Capitec, for example, look at China, for argument's sake, and could you use technology to break into new markets like that? So the QR code, is that the future of how we do business?
Yeah, I think the whole cash is a big mindset that we need to break and change in South Africa. We need to change that completely to away from even a card, to go to QR and other payment mechanisms. And we're spending a lot of time now on that side. And I think there's a lot of things that's going to happen in that space in the next 3 to 4 years. Because if you control the payment side of a client, And what I mean by the payment side, you're controlling, you're understanding that, you're building then AI where you can then go into the credit space, etc., etc. So the whole seamless digital e-commerce, I think that's the space to go. I was lucky enough to, before COVID, to be 2019 in China, and I spent 2 weeks with Alibaba and Tencent and all those companies, and it's amazing what they got right there. You know, it was actually quite frustrating because normally if you go into a country, they don't accept card. Everything is QR based, everything is app based. But now you can't open up a bank account. A bank account takes 48 hours, and I'm there for 2.5 weeks. So what do you do now? So you're in this hybrid of a card and cash, and they don't accept cash. But then you really understand how the ecosystem has changed completely. And I think that is a big opportunity in South Africa, is to actually leapfrog from cash completely to a QR type of platform.
Alan Windy was telling me the other day on the series how somebody came and asked him for some money, and he said, "Oh, terribly sorry, I just don't have any cash with me." He said, "No, don't worry, SnapScan." And this guy was hustling, and he managed to get himself. And Alan Windy at that point went, "Sure, absolutely, there is no excuse," and off he did and gave the guy some cash. You know, and in that way.
My wallet has got no money in. So I'm either on our app or with card, and that's the way I operate. And I feel the sorriest for a car guard, because now you want to give him £5 or whatever, and if he hasn't got a QR code, then you can't help it. And that's probably where we will very early in the new year have P2P QR codes, whereby you will have your QR code, I will have my QR code, and if I want to pay you, I can scan your QR code, or you can actually send that QR code to me on WhatsApp, and I'll just pay it there. And I think the moment those type of technologies will come out, and I think there's a lot of that, not only ourselves, other banks as well, that will change the whole behavior. But that's for sure coming.
When last did you spend cash?
I was actually at a restaurant before we were locked down, and I paid the bill, and one of my friends gave me cash. It took me a while to get.
It's all right. Just don't make me touch that filthy stuff.
Yeah.
So they know you well. They know you well. But yeah, and it seems strange. I mean, did you start as an experiment, or was it really as a fundamental principle now that you don't believe you need to have cash, so therefore you just, you know, there will be obstacles in the way and stuff, and you may struggle a bit at times depending on who you're dealing with, but generally you can get away without having any cash ever?
Yeah, I think it started with traveling abroad, because traveling abroad you don't need cash, so you're starting to get used to it. And then when COVID happened, I just made a point and said no, I won't use cash. And it's a lot of our people in Capitec. If you look at our head office, if you pay for anything at our head office, coffee or food or anything, you can't pay with cash. We've taken everything away. We've actually gone so far as you can't pay with a card. You've got on the app scan to pay, so you can pay there. So that's all ways that we're starting to move away from a card and cash.
Talk to me about the blockchain. People say, "Oh, blockchain," and then start speaking a foreign language. But I mean, is blockchain really the future from your perspective?
Yeah, I think there's the whole argument about cryptocurrencies. I think that is a thing on its own. I'm struggling to understand cryptocurrencies from a point of view, what is the real value behind it? Because I understand if you look at the rand or the dollar, you can understand the balance sheet of the country that's behind it. I believe if you look at blockchain with a distributed ledger behind it, that has got a lot of value, and it's going to improve a lot of processes and a lot of client experiences over time. And that's going to make a big difference in worldwide. I think the moment that the amount of energy it uses and the amount of computer power or computing power that it actually uses, that is all sorted out. It's going to be definitely a new way of working, and we're playing with it to see how we can actually make things more efficient, make it more effective, cross-border payments, things like that. We plan. So we believe blockchain is definitely going to change quite a lot of things going forward.
Do you have lots of rooms where people are doing different things, projects? I mean, I've got this image of a massive factory, if you like, and you've got rooms off to the sides where somebody's playing with blockchain, somebody's playing with QR codes, somebody is experimenting as to whether or not there's a better alternative to cash, but a physical token of some kind. I mean, are there like 20 or 50 experiments going on at any one time?
Yeah, what we do, Bruce, is we've got an innovation team that plays and also travels quite a lot. Before COVID, we encouraged our senior team and our innovation team to travel a lot to understand what's happening abroad and bring that back. I can't remember now, but we did before COVID, I think we did over 1,000 international trips in a year to different areas just to keep up and understand and bring that back. Then we've got our own innovation teams that play. And then what happens quite a lot is we have hackathons with the universities where we get the students, you give them beer and pizzas and ideas, and you say to them, you've got a weekend to come up with solutions. And it's quite incredible what comes out of it. You know, we have been running it now for the last 3 years, and I think there's 3 or 4 of them that is in production now that we will probably use. So it's incredible to actually ignite that energy. I think the one thing is one will like to do it more and bigger, but because you need to balance that with what you are busy with producing for the client. But yeah, it's a big area for us, is the whole innovation side.
Users, another question. Users are bombarded with various digital wallets offerings, which makes a great amount of sense, especially in the payment formats. Why wouldn't the retail banks accept these solutions? I think I'm going to rephrase that question a little bit and just saying there are so many different great ideas and fintechs jumping up all over the place. Everybody's got a new idea and a new. Are we going to sort of settle down a little bit and get some sort of mainstream accepted payment systems in the same way as we've been used to, you know, cash, debit card, credit card, that we'll get 1 or 2 apps perhaps that'll do the job for us in the future and the rest will become defunct?
Yeah, that was a massive debate and still a debate in Capitec. If I look at wallets, there's 2 types of wallets. There's a closed loop wallet, and a closed loop wallet is where you use it in a certain number of shops, and you need to be in that loop. So you've got very limited functionality. We're not very keen on that. And then the second one is you are on an open wallet. Now, the moment you're in an open wallet, then I'm asking, what's the difference between a wallet and a Capitec transactional account? Because you can onboard with us as we're standing now. You can onboard down to the app. You take a selfie, and via facial recognition, we recognize you with the Department of Home Affairs. We open an account for you, and then you've got an open account, and you can trade with everyone. So I think there's a lot of hype that's been created with a lot of these innovations, and I think that's where you need to be careful to say, but does it really make sense to the client, and what is that value add that you created? So, you know, if we look at innovation and wallets and those type of things, we're saying, what is the long-term effect? What is what makes the best interest for the client? And we're trying to go into that particular route, because if I look at an open wallet and a very low-cost bank account, there's no difference. It's exactly the same.
When I look at that map behind you, you've got the world map. At the moment, you're concentrated at the southern tip of Africa. We've seen a couple of upstarts come to market. We're still waiting for some upstarts to come to market. TimeBank, for example, Australian funded initially, and they disinvested, and Patrice Motsepe has taken over African Rainbow Capital, taken a big stake, and they've got new shareholders. They're looking at places like Malaysia, for goodness sake, to be taking the TimeBank model. You see opportunities to take this business model, which you've crafted in the furnace of South Africa, to new places and to use it in new ways.
Yeah, I think, you know, if I look at the retail side, we've got now 9 million clients on digital. using the app. So that's a big portion of our client base. We've got now 16 million clients. And we're building a massive amount of digital capabilities to enhance the value add to the particular clients. Then we're building Mercantile, and everything is on track for late next year. And that will be a completely digital Capitec business bank. And then if you put that all together, you've got a very strong digital platform that you can take international. Because I think to go international with bricks and mortar is difficult. And that's not the route we will go. But I think if the moment we've created that and we've got our market share in South Africa, which we believe we can get, then there's opportunity for sure to go into different areas. That's why we bought Cream. That's the online lending business that we bought about 3-4 years ago. We're operating in six countries. And that gives us insights into the different markets, the regulatory risks, et cetera, to help us understand that better so that when we want to go, we've got already a feeling of what's happening.
I mean, so many South African businesses, and I remember it was the year that you were awarded Business Leader of the Year in the Sunday Times Top 100 Companies Awards, and you arrived with your family, and it was a very festive evening. But it struck me then that the top 5 performing companies, 3 or 4 out of the top 5, had all focused almost exclusively their growth ambitions on South Africa. There was Transaction Capital, and there was another one, which escapes me now. But Clicks was in there as well at the time. I think it was 2019. And it struck me that so many South African companies have gone and all over the world and have gone to look for new opportunities, and some have succeeded. Thank goodness they have. SAB did very well. Naspers did well. The mining companies have done well. Many others, particularly services businesses, have gone in, bought companies at the wrong price. Old Mutual blew hundreds of millions, I can't even remember which currency, around the globe, trying to grow outside. And the best returns generally have been reserved for those growing internally, seizing the opportunity that South Africa has presented in amidst the noise and the chaos.
Well, I think, Bruce, what we've seen is, I think you've got 2 ways to go internationally. You either go big, and then you've got big risk, or you go small and you learn. We've gone small and learning. And what we've learned is to understand, I'm just giving you, if you take Poland versus Mexico versus Spain, that's completely different. And to understand those clients, the way we understand the South African clients, it's a massive task. And then to understand the regulatory side of the business, it's completely different. And that's where we're saying is you need to rather spend your time now in South Africa, because there's the whole business banking, retail banking that we've gone through, and we believe there's plenty of opportunities in that space. And I think that's where SAB has shown us, if you want to go internationally, then you must breed enough capacity that you can take 20% of your best leaders to go internationally. Because it doesn't help that you buy and you've got those people running the ship. You need to take your best people across. And that will be, if we start feeling, okay, right, now we're ready to go. The biggest challenge would be to get a big portion of our core managers, top guys ready so that we can actually take them abroad, that they can, let's say, work on a 50-50 basis or whatever, but that we can get the Capitec culture across and their knowledge of the markets, and then trying to get a winning recipe.
There's one thing that's clear to me, having had this conversation with you today, and I'll let you go in a moment to go and keep saving the economy, but it's the growth mindset it doesn't ever rest. You're always looking at avenues and opportunities, and I think having to say no more than you're saying yes, because you do see a plethora of opportunities.
Yeah, I think it's the mindset of, I think just thinking back 2-3 years ago, we spent 4 days on how would you disrupt Capitec, and we had our best young guys in the bank coming back to us as exco and saying, how would they disrupt us? And we normally spend quite a lot of time on where would the bank be 3 years from now, and how do you grow the bank? We've actually taken that mindset now to where must the bank be in 2030? So you're starting to look much more longer term. So I think there's two things, or three things. It's that how do you grow that long-term mindset? Don't take shortcuts or short-term decisions that will affect the bottom line now. Think long-term. And then the word focus. It's easy for us to say now, let's go international, but the focus can't be. The focus must be on South Africa retail business banking. And when we're ready, the next focus will be international. So that word focus, and it comes back to what you said, Nana, is then the no comes in. The most difficult thing in the world. There's opportunities and you need to say no because it doesn't suit me now, or it's not right for the company now. That's the most difficult thing to do.
Okay, last question. How do you tell the difference between yes and no in that moment?
Well, I think there's two things. You need to understand what is the need of the client and where does it fit in, and you need to understand what you are busy with because there could be things that is more important or will have much better benefits to the client versus this that you're busy with. Because we get inundated with a lot of suggestions and new plans, etc., and we will look at it, but there's very quickly that you weigh it up against the needs of the client. What are we busy with? What is our strategies for the next 4 or 5 years, and where this is fitting in? Because otherwise you're going to be busy with 20, 30 things, and then you do it badly. I'd rather be busy with 2, 3 things, but do it exceptionally well.
And ultimately, it goes full circle straight back to the client. Boom. If the client's at the center, you won't make a bad choice.
If you don't talk client day in, day out, I still remember somebody asked me what worried me the most of COVID. And I said to him, the fact that I'm sitting here at home in these 4 walls, and I don't understand really what is happening with the client. I don't understand how he's experiencing and what is happening with the economy, what is happening out there. And the first opportunity I had that we were traveling again, we were out visiting the branches, going into Soweto, going into Bosbokrand, going into Hazy View, Thohoyandou, those places to really understand what's happening in the economy, and taking that back into and say, but how did the client change and what has happened to ourselves? I remember one of the things that struck me is you heard that the government is struggling to deliver, and we basically had 50-60% of the government people at home, but then they haven't got laptops, and all their processes are paper-based. So how do you deliver? But you only realize those things when you talk to our consultants and talk to the clients. So you need to have that passion.
Gerrie Fourie, thank you very, very much indeed. We've gone over time, but I really appreciate you being generous with that time. Mikhail, to you.
Thank you, Bruce and Gerrie. That was fascinating. Capitec will be a case study in business schools for years to come. And with that, a closing message from ourselves at PSG. A skilled and trusted financial advisor can be invaluable during these uncertain times. They can provide objective insights and help you consider alternative scenarios so you can make considered, rational decisions on your wealth and insurance portfolios. If you have an advisor, I encourage you to engage with him. And if you don't, then please get in touch with us. We also welcome your feedback, so please communicate with us. And be sure to register for our next exciting speaker in the Think Big series, where we will discuss the future of South Africa's constitution with Hulk Meyer. Thank you.